Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus May membership meeting. In case anybody is new, I'm Steve Halecko. I'm the political director of the organization. And if you are new and would like to become a member of the Progressive Caucus, which you've got a lot of endorsements votes coming up in July, you'll be eligible to vote on those. Membership is free. Now, one of the things that Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus has discovered in over a year of Zoom meetings that instead of putting links in the chat, because folks then like go to the link and then they miss part of the meeting, they can't find the link, et cetera, et cetera. All the links that we talk about, we're going to send you in an email, and you'll probably get it sometime tomorrow morning because it takes a while to upload your email addresses from Zoom. And that will have, all the links that we talk about, an attachment with the PowerPoint presentation, all of that. So the first link that you'll see is join the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. The second link you'll see has to do with the fact that we are all volunteer funded and all volunteer staff. And, when we have our live meetings, we ask folks to, if you got a couple dollars in your wallet, if you can contribute, that's fine. Obviously, we cannot do that by Zoom. So the donate link is going to be in the email that you get tomorrow. And if you have a little bit of extra cash and want to help us out, that would be great. Upcoming events. One thing that is ongoing, and we've been active in this for well over a month, is we are fighting the anti-protest bills that the Ohio General Assembly has introduced. You might remember the April 10th Protest While You Can in Cleveland event. Right now, we're focusing on talking to the legislature. And there's something that the coalition is doing every Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we got a tweet. We'll send you these links in the email tomorrow. But we're also, and this is like, okay, anti-protest bills. We also have anti-voting rights bills coming up. And so we're going to lump those together to anti-democracy bills. So we're keeping an eye on those. And, if we ask for an action step and you can do it, that would be great. Upcoming in June, we have our Lakewood City Council Candidates Forum and our Cleveland Heights Mayoral Candidates Forum. The Lakewood one is June 15th, Cleveland Heights is June 16th. You can make those, that will be great. Again, we'll have a link in the email that we send out tomorrow. And then we've got some Cleveland specific events. We don't have the dates for those yet. But we're looking at city council, mayoral candidate forums. The municipal election years are for us actually more busy than the midterms because we've got more candidates. I mean, if you think of municipal elections all over the city, smaller districts and so forth. And I'm just looking here. That's about it. And again, you'll get an email with all of these links in it sometime tomorrow. First up tonight, as you know, we voted to endorse Nina Turner in the 11th Congressional District Special Election. So I want to introduce Anton Krieger from the Nina Turner campaign, who's going to say a few words about how we're going to get Nina elected. Anton?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. You're okay? Can I get a yes?
You're breaking up a little.
I'm breaking up a little. All right, let me head to the door. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, so yeah, my name is Anton Krieger. I'm actually here at the Akron office right now. I'm double fisting meetings. Say hello, everybody. Hi. So I'm a field organizer for Cuyahoga County. And so I just wanted to pitch some events to you guys. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we have a phone bank from 6 to 8 p.m. virtually. And every Saturday, we are doing a canvas at 11 a.m. at our Cleveland and Akron office. So I just wanted to pitch those things to you. I'm going to drop our Mobilize link in the chat for all of our events coming up. And also I'm going to drop my phone number in there so you guys can reach out to me personally if you guys are interested in getting involved in a more, I guess, intimate way with the campaign. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope to see some of you guys volunteering for Nina Turner soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Now, is Leah Nichols here or anybody from Rank the Vote Ohio?
Hello. Yes. My name's
Justin.
Wells. Yes.
Are you from Rank the Vote Ohio?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Justin Wells from Rank the Vote Ohio is going to talk about something that is very popular in progressive circles, and it's something that the CCPC is considering doing on our endorsement vote. So, Justin, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks for having me. So I want to start off by thanking you all for having me, but I also want to ask how many people here are familiar with ranked choice voting? I am seeing a bunch of hands. That is awesome. So there are a few people who are whom I couldn't see if they raised their hands or not. So just for those last couple of people, what ranked choice voting is a simple upgrade to the way that we currently vote. So instead of just picking one person, you rank your choices. So first, second, third, so on. If your first choice doesn't win, your vote shifts to your second choice. If they don't win, shifts to your third, and so on. This way, there's never a time in which there is a spoiler. There is never any wasted vote. You get to vote for your hopes and not just your fears. So when I say that, we all kind of know what the major issues are that happen in a lot of politics. The last election was a fantastic example of the reasons why you should vote for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump was that he wasn't Donald Trump. It just came down to, I am the least bad person who is running in this race right now. You should vote for me. And one of the things that ranked choice voting is going to let us start doing is voting for the people we want, not just the ones we feel stuck with. So one of the major things that we know that has been happening is more and more people feel left out. They feel left behind by politicians. They feel left out of politics, that even if they were to vote, they still don't think that anything meaningful would happen. Almost 50% of people didn't vote in the 2016 election, and we were at about 30% of people didn't vote in 2020. And there's a million different reasons for it. A lot of them are different aspects of voter suppression, but one of the other major reasons of the people who could vote and chose not to was there's just not enough of a difference between the people that they could have voted for. So what ranked choice voting does is gives us the opportunity to change that system. We get to start to shift the way that we all view politics from just being the least worst person to being, who do I identify with? Who do I believe in? Over 80% of the country wants some version of socialized healthcare, most that of being Medicare for all. 90% of people want some form of background checks. Both of those, when polled for the actual members of Congress, hits at best 20% for Medicare for all, at best even worse for some form of universal background checks. We know that the people whom we continue to put into office do not represent us. A couple of months ago, it was considered a record-breaking 35% approval rating for the Congress that we have. We have now broken records again, and they are at 50. We have a failing rate on the people whom we put into office. And one of the reasons that causes that issue is that there is not an incentive for them to be better. There is no reason why they have to be someone that everyone wants to listen to. There's no reason for them to actively try to do the things that people put them into office to vote for, because the only incentive that they have is to be not the worst person in the race. So what ranked choice voting does, and the way that we want to have it work, is a system called instant runoff voting. Like I said before, the whole idea is, however you want to rank your choices, if your first choice doesn't win, then your vote shifts to your second. If your second choice doesn't win, then your vote shifts to your third. Always meaning that everyone can vote for the person they want, while still always having a backup just in case. So I see that a few people have started throwing in what a Wikipedia for instant runoff voting and how it's been implemented in Maine. And we are actually going to do a very similar thing to how Maine runs theirs. Our goal is every time that you vote for every office, you will rank your choices. Because the different issues that always affect multi-winner races will always affect at every single level, going all the way up to the presidential bids, all the way down to municipality, to city school boards. If the only reason why you want everyone to vote for you is that you are just the least terrible, command any sort of you never bring about, and we want to change that. So ranked choice voting is one of the best ways forward. It alleviates the other issues that so heavily affect all of our politics. When you have ranked choice voting, you can vote for the person you want, even if they don't have the greatest monetary advantage. Gerrymandering becomes less of an issue, still an issue, because it's harder to gerrymander 5 different parties. It helps alleviate all of the major issues, letting this be the first major domino that we think needs to fall. But the thing that we want from all of you guys is just your support. We know that this is going to be a major campaign. Most of it is going to be education. A lot of people very simply just don't know what ranked choice voting is. And like most issues, it's just going to be an education. There is never a time in which I have explained what ranked choice voting is to someone and then not immediately say, oh my God, that sounds great. Why don't we do it? And I think that that's probably true with a lot of people here. It's one of those things of, it is simple and it is easy and it makes sense. There's never a time in which someone does not say, no, I think our politics are exactly perfect the way that they are. There is nothing wrong, because that person doesn't exist. We all know that there are major problems and we all want to fix them. Most of the time, people just don't know how. So our goal is 2022 to try to make this happen. COVID obviously makes that a little bit more difficult, but that is our goal. We are going to start running ads. We have a few, and you can actually find them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, which is Rank the Vote Ohio. And I very much recommend you guys watch it. We've got just the first one up. But what I would like to ask all of you is for your support and for a little bit of your help. The ways in which we can change politics, the ways that we can fix the broken, disgusting, corrupt system that we have. This is one of the major steps that needs to happen. we can fix all of the other problems. But if people still feel as though they are only locked between picking the lesser of two evils, we have to always remember that that is still all of us saying that we are voting for evil. And everyone knows that that's not the case. That's not how we can keep going. We know that it can't last that way forever. So I'd actually like to ask if anyone has any questions about who we are or what ranked choice voting is.
Dennis, I have a question. You hear me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What is the mechanics of the ballot? I mean, can you give an example? Do they have like the four names listed, then they have like four numbers, like each name, and they got to circle the number,
Mhm.
they write in the number,
Yeah.
or they draw lines? And beyond that, how do you do that so you minimize ballot spoilage and challenges? Is this going to massively increase challenges to ballots and the need for manual review of ballots?
So with Maine having run it a few times, no, we don't actually. There's really been not any particular times in which they've had to like really manually recount all of them. I actually do have, if I could get screen share privileges, I actually do have something that I could show you guys. One of them is from the League of Women Voters, who uses this internally and has otherwise endorsed it in every state that's come up.
You can share screen.
Oh, thank you. Let me, there we go. Move this a bit. So for a great way to look at how simple it is, all it does is adds a little bit more text is the short answer to it. But as simple as, and I'm going to just read off of it, as simple as it is just fill in the 1 next to your first choice, fill in the 2 next to your second choice, and fill in the 3 next to your third choice. And the thing that Maine has talked about, that while people might have were scared initially about how difficult it would be to educate everyone on the general mechanics of how you fill out your ballot, this was the one that they used to educate everyone in Maine, and they never had an issue with it. So I will, how do I stop screen sharing? There it is. So it is a very easy ballot. The only thing that realistically changes is it takes up a little bit more space, is mainly what happens. For a good example, there were 20 some odd number of people in the last Democratic primary. It would look silly, but it already does. With for anyone who might have voted very particularly early and they had 20 different names on the ballot, it already took up a lot of space. It just takes up a little bit more space horizontally too. But as far as like manual recounts, they roughly take about the same amount of time as a normal recount. Most of the time it's more just making sure that everyone knows the best way to count it. And I hope that answered a few of your questions.
Yeah, those are all machine read. That machine just reads it, and then the algorithms just grind out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like the major thing is, because people have been seeing this come up, most of the companies already have the programming. There is nothing else that needs to be done because they sell to most different states, so they've already done it.
Randy, if you could hold, because Khalil had his hand up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Randy?
Yeah.
No, it's actually Khalil.
Oh, sorry.
He's got his hand up.
Oh, apologies.
Go ahead.
Oh, he's not
Okay.
connected to
No,
audio.
I can hear you
You
now.
got it
Okay.
now? Okay.
All right, I had a quick question. So we have a peculiar system of elections in Cleveland Heights for our city council.
Yes.
It is a group of people who are all vying for a group of positions.
Mhm.
No one is running against any particular person. I can easily understand how a large group of people all vying for one spot
Mhm.
would be, you know, it would be effective for ranked choice voting. But if there are 8 people vying for 4 spots, how exactly does that work?
So it is a version called single transferable vote. Um, uh, and the basics of how it works is after first place already wins, the excess votes then just shift to all of their second choices. Then you see, oh, okay, who's in second? Do we now have enough to win? Then you keep doing the same. So all of the excess votes just continue to shift. So like if it's 8 people running for 4 spots, um, throwing out numbers, first place wins 50% just to make the math easier, but they only need 25. So all of those people votes then shift to whoever all of their seconds were, because the first place already won. Then second place will then go down. However, at least for now, just because we do have to piecemeal this, we are going to say that the first round of us putting this through will just be single winner. It would work, but because that is a little bit more of an explanation for those different things, we do have to recognize we have to do that one second. It might take us a couple times to make those more difficult ones a little bit easier for people.
Okay, one quick clarifying question.
Sure.
In Cleveland Heights, there is no threshold of winning. It's just whoever got the 4 candidates who got more votes than the other 4 candidates.
Yes.
So it might be that the winner got 7 votes out of, thousands of people who went to vote that year. It's
Yeah.
just that nobody else got more. So there's no actual threshold. Does that change it at all, or?
Yes. So like ranked choice voting, because like that is like how you're talking about it, that threshold is what's called first past the post. That's the one that we have. And what ranked choice voting does is it says you can't just win by having slightly more than everyone else. You have to have earned 50%. So when you start doing multi-winner, you then just change the threshold of what counts as the winner. So instead of when there's just one person winning, you say 50%, because then no one else can ever have more than 50% too. You then change it to say, like, if there's three winners that need to go in, then if all 3 people got 33%, that becomes 33 is the threshold. So with 4 people, it becomes 25, because if everyone has 25, no one else can ever get more than that. So like when I say threshold, it's because ranked choice voting creates a thing that you have to beat before you say like you actually get counted as a winner.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Randy.
Now, Randy.
Okay. I was wondering, now what would have you comment that you're trying to do this for 2022?
Mhm.
What do you have to do? Do you have to make it a constitutional amendment, or how does it actually get enacted?
So we are actually going to go for a statute. We could do a constitutional amendment, but one of the issues with constitutional amendment is it creates an issue where we just say everyone has to do ranked choice voting, and then we let the legislature figure it out. We do not trust the legislature, as the short version of that argument,
Smart.
for reasons. So instead, our goal is we will instead create a statute, so just a blanket law in which we say these are all of the rules that must be followed, so that we will have effectively done the legwork that the legislature normally otherwise would have, and just say we don't want any otherwise corrupt people who have won in a system not with ranked choice voting to then tell us how ranked choice voting is actually supposed to be run. Because once again, we don't trust them.
Because, and the statute would cover all the state of Ohio,
Yes.
correct?
Everyone except for, of course, the charter cities, because charter cities do what they want. But that's true either way.
Okay.
So yes, generally it's statute. We are writing the language right now. But does anyone else have any other questions?
When you say you're going for legislation, you mean a petition initiative or just
Yes.
lobbying?
Petition initiative. So the plan is it's a couple thousand signatures to first get it up, to get it through the initial, hey, you missed a colon in part 6 subsection 2. Then it's okay, now that you've done that, I think it's 466,000 signatures from the 44 out of the 88 districts of Ohio, counties of Ohio. But yes, ours is the ballot initiative, not lobbying. And I think someone put into the chat asking about bipartisan interest. Yes, we actually do. We have been calling it tripartisan because we get the Libertarian, the Greens, Movement for the People's Party. Our Revolution Ohio has also endorsed Rank the Vote Ohio. So this is in a tripartisan thing. This is an issue that generally every single person in all of the different parties wants. And as a great example of it, even the Republican Party in a couple different states, Virginia, Texas, Georgia, all use ranked choice voting already, because when you want to win and have the most people on your side, you need a system that gets the majority support. So everyone already uses this in different states. It's just getting them to realize that they should use it here too. But, I think that was the only other one that I saw in the chat.
You have a question? You have a raised hand, Marion? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Justin. Thanks for the information. It's very interesting. Can you just relay what your sense is as to whether this will be there's a good chance for this being successful for 2022 or a couple years after, or we've got a shot at this at 2022?
We think we have a good chance for 2022. From, like I said, from the very initial polling that we have done. And once again, we are still, at least for us, in the earlier stages for this. We have a near universal sign-on. We didn't do an exact number on this, but it comes out roughly 95-ish%. There are a few people who generally tend to be the holdouts of, no, this is the system that we have and it must forever stay the same way. But in the majority of instances, most everyone is like, oh yeah, politics sucks. Will this make it not suck? Yes. is the best. So it's more for us. It's an infrastructure issue, not whether or not people want it. It's making sure that the education campaign takes off and hits everyone. And that's the only fear that we actually have of this not being possible for 2022. We could push it just back a year. I will admit, we do want to avoid 2024, mostly because we'd be fighting to get ad space against the literal billions of dollars that is going to happen for the next presidential campaigns. So Celeste asked, would this be on the ballot for the whole state or by county? We would want this for the whole state. We want every single person to say how much they want ranked choice voting. And like I said earlier, it is an issue that affects everyone. So there is no spot in which we don't think that ranked choice voting would just make people's lives better. But did anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, you've got another hand raised. Bob Parker, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
About why we should spend our time on this, because it sounds like from what you're saying that this could help. Maybe it'll help conservatives more, maybe it'll help libertarians more, maybe it'll help moderates more. So why, since most of us have limited time, this doesn't sound like something that we would want to put a lot of effort into, because it could work either way. It's not necessarily guaranteed that it's only the progressives are going to use this. Anybody could be using it, and it might work out that's something that we didn't want. So what do you think about that?
I think there are two different answers to this. I don't think that this is a thing that expressly helps any one single person. And so saying, if it doesn't expressly help me, why should I do it? It's because it still does make the system better. I will put out my own personal bias. I think it does help progressives. I think it helps whoever is the most populist of all candidates more than any other particular person. One of the things that we have started to see from at least a few of the elected officials that we have talked to, and I think this is a very telling statement, is when we have asked them, hey, have you heard of ranked choice voting, and would you support it? They have told us, I have won my districts by around 40 to 60%. Every time. It is always a clear majority. It is always a clear win for them. Why would I change the system to one that doesn't benefit me? And that is saying that they do not care about the ways in which their constituency could actually show their support, or the people that they care about, that they care more about the power that they have instead of the things that that would help their constituents more. So yes, it doesn't expressly only help progressives, but it does help everyone, and it makes the system better. As a general rule, Democrats win when more people vote. As a general rule, the majority of the country and the majority of Ohio tends to agree with progressive thoughts and ideals more than they do any other particular group on an issue by issue basis. The things that we have that are issues and problems in our country and in politics is that of pure ideology. The person who says, I want Republicans to win because I'm a Republican, and if it doesn't And even if a thing will help every single person, if the Republicans don't support it, I won't either. That is one of the biggest issues that comes about in our current political system, because there is no incentive for anyone to care about what would actually be better for everyone else. And that is solved through ranked choice voting, because it changes the incentive system to not simply win over just your base or get slightly more than everyone else. You have to actually win the hearts and minds of all of your constituents, of all of the voters, instead of just a couple more than everyone else. So I'd say that it's a much more democratic thing, and that is why we should do it. And you don't have to throw all of your weight or all of your effort behind it if you think something is better. But a more democratic system is the thing that I am working towards, and I think that you guys would want to.
Do we have any more questions?
Ted,
Ted?
Here, popped.
Yeah, just one question. Justin, could you post in the chat your contact information?
Oh, sure. So this first one here is my email, and if you will give me a second. This is our website. For anyone who would want to help us volunteer or donate, they're both links right at the top. rankthevoteohio.org/volunteer or rankthevoteohio.org/donate. Either one helps us. We would love to see you guys at our next monthly meeting, which is the 23rd. But it's a thing that even any little bit of donation helps. It's one of the things that helps other larger donors recognize that we have that grassroots swell, that people want this, even if you give $1 a month.
We'll get those links in the email we send out tomorrow too, Justin.
Oh, thank you guys.
As well as a link to the May membership meeting, your May meeting.
Thank you. So I do want to point out a thing that in the chat, someone says, and this is Celeste again, in my experience, it's centrists that are helped by current voting practices. And Celeste is entirely right. When people, it's that issue of everyone only ever thinking that they have to pick of the lesser of two evils. It's where people start to think that the only person that you can vote for is the person everyone else is. It becomes a meta issue, and you're meta voting, trying to guess what everyone else is going to vote for so that you don't personally waste your vote. And it's in that thought of a wasted vote that you exercising your own freedom to vote, you are still somehow doing it wrong, is one of the things that we really want to solve, because there should never be a time in which someone says, I didn't vote well. If you voted for whoever you want, I want to be able to tell that person you voted well. But in the system that we have now, that is not the case. So thank you, Celeste. You are entirely correct on that.
Anything else? We do need to get moving.
Oh,
Well, thank you
sorry
very
if I
much.
took a bunch of time.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Justin. Let's give him a little round of applause like this. We can't really
Thank you,
do it
everyone.
live over Zoom. And like I said, the links are in the chat. I'll get you some links to Rank the Vote Ohio and their May membership meeting in the email that we send out tomorrow. The precinct committee project is the next thing on the agenda. And how we can change the Democratic Party. And I want to emphasize the word change because when we started this project 4 years ago, um, the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party, I should say many members of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party said that the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus was out to destroy the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. And, that kind of took on, and that was in, the heightened tensions of the Bernie wing of the party and the Hillary wing of the party at the time. So, please, in conversations, don't ever say that we're out to destroy the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. We're out to change it. And I guess you could say, well, changing something is destroying it as it is. But basically, what we're trying to do is work within the process that they have established, which is a democratic process. And I want to go through the basics when we get to the PowerPoint presentation, but the precinct committee leaders, who are also the central committee members of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party, they elect the party chair, they elect the party officers, they elect executive committee members who vote on endorsements, and they also have the power to change the bylaws. So we're trying to get a majority of precinct committee leaders, central committee leaders, so we can change the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. Okay, it's not like an inside coup. And if we were to get a majority, then of course, the majority control things in any legislative body. Right now, we have about 20% of the central committee members in the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. We're not a majority. We do have enough executive committee members that we have blocked endorsements in the past. But we're starting a year out. Last time we couldn't really start this far out because it was known that Stu Garson was going to resign as party chair and that there was going to be a special election for his replacement for a year before the regular election in 2018. So we're starting a year out. There are about 900 precincts in Cuyahoga County. About 200 of them don't have a precinct committee leader. It's very hard, to find people in these positions. So what we're going to do tonight is explain how the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party operates, explain what the precinct committee person, central committee person does, explain how you become one, and then there are 2 action steps in the future. First of all, if what we described to you tonight interests you, let me know and we'll have a one-on-one conversation. And then the second thing is we've got to get to as many activist organizations, as many groups that can help us on this as possible. Because like I said, there are about 900 precincts in Cuyahoga County. Deb, can we get the slideshow going, or the PowerPoint? Okay, the precinct project, understanding the precinct leader's role in the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. We will send this to you in the email tomorrow if you would like to view it again. Next slide. Okay, this slide shows what the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party considers to be affinity groups. Progressive Caucus, Ohio Democratic Party, the Women's Caucus, and the Stonewall Democrats. Now, affinity group means that there's simply an affiliation. And the way I have always explained the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus relationship with the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party is we work with the party when we can, and we work outside of it when we cannot. And the perfect example of when we cannot is all of the issues that we've worked on. The Cuyahoga County Democratic Party never works on issues. We feel that the party should because that would help the party's image, but they don't. And there's a variety of reasons for this. But we, like the Women's Caucus and the Stonewall Democrats, from time to time endorse different candidates. But perfect example being last year's general election where we had to defeat Donald Trump. We work with the party when we can. Next slide. Okay, those are the Democratic Party officers. Chantel Brown is the chair. Kevin Kelly is the vice chair. Executive director is still an open position. Many of you know Ryan Puente. He resigned at the first of the year. He's now Cleveland mayoral candidate Justin Bibb's campaign manager. These officers are elected by the Central Committee, and it's done every 4 years. The last election was in 2018. The next election is 2022, next year. And what happens is the Central Committee members are elected in the May primary, okay? And you have to vote, Democratic vote. We're going to see this in a future slide. And then after the new Central Committee members are elected, about a month later in June, the new party chair and the party officers are elected for a 4-year term. Next up. Okay, organization of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. And we're going to explain how this is done in a minute. There's executive committee and central committee. Now, the executive committee is either elected by central committee members or appointed. Now, the appointments are by what's called the city leader, but they have to be approved by the party chair. Democratic clubs exist, and they're a very good thing within the party structure, but they do not actually have a say in the party organization. The bylaws are a huge part of the organization. Those hardly ever change, but that's one of the things that we would like to do if we should get a majority of central committee members. Now, the last thing, this is kind of important. The central committee members or the Cuyahoga County, they do not directly report to the Ohio Democratic Party. They have to follow, and we're actually in the process of looking into this, okay? The County Democratic Party has to follow certain bylaws of the Ohio Democratic Party, which has to follow certain bylaws of the Democratic National Committee or the National Democratic Party. But the Central Committee actually is the local governing body of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. And one of the things, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but one of the things that the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party does, which they say they have to do because they are following National Democratic Party rules, is any election, you kind of think of secret ballot as a given. It's not by secret ballot. If you're a Central Committee member and you're voting on the party chair, everybody knows who you voted for. If you're an executive committee member and you're voting on an endorsement, everybody knows who you're voting for. Now, if you think of this in the context of what a lot of people think about the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party, that it's ruled by party bosses and it's ruled by intimidation, favors, all of that, what better way to enforce that type of behavior than to have every vote not be a secret ballot? But again, that comes from the National Democratic Party, and that's one of the things we want to do, is to try to change that. Next slide, please. Okay, we kind of mentioned some of this before. The Central Committee is the former governing body of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party, made up of precinct leaders, vote for party leadership and the ward or city leaders. Now, the next part is the grassroots leadership and link between the party and precinct residents. One of the things that precinct committee people, central committee members are supposed to do is during the time of a general election, make sure all the Democrats in the precinct vote. Okay, this is not a hard task. Precincts, are very small. The reality is most precinct committee people don't do that part of their job. Most around the county show up and vote when there's elections because maybe they took the position because their friend, a party boss or a city leader, called them up and asked them to do it. During the midterms in 2018, the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party told us in no uncertain terms that the majority of precinct committee people who actually did their job and got people out to vote were the precinct committee members who were also Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus members. And I'm looking around, I see a number of you, in this room. So that's a very good look for the Progressive Caucus. The last part may be called upon to vote in specialized elections within the party. You might remember a couple months ago when County Council District 3 position became open when Dan Brady resigned. It was the central committee members in County Council District 3 who picked his replacement. And one of the things that, the Cuyahoga County government has with their council members is should a resignation occur in the middle of the term, it's the party of the person who resigns who picks the replacement to fill out the term. So that became all of a sudden, I think there were about 85 central committee members in County Council District 3. They had to pick the replacement. Now, you may have seen that the ultimate machine politician, Martin Sweeney, won that central committee vote and became the county council person for District 3. But it was very, very close. We're at the point now where we can make these elections close. Were there no dissent in the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party, a central committee election like that one, Martin Sweeney would have won near unanimous, if there wasn't an organized movement. And what I'm saying is we need more people to stop things like that. Another example of where central committee members may be called on. There was a few years ago, Nick Celebrezzi, who was the state representative candidate in, I forget the number, but the district in Parma. He decided after the primary that he wanted to retire. I don't think he actually retired. He moved. But anyways, he couldn't be on the ballot anymore. So the central committee members in his state rep district got to vote on a candidate who would be on the ballot in the November election. So, you see when something like that comes up, if you're a central committee member in that particular instance, you have a very important role to fill. Next slide, please. Okay, we put a separate slide in on this because this is often confusing to folks. Well, what's a central committee? What's central committee and precinct? It's the same thing. I think precinct leader refers to the role that person does on the ground in their precinct at election time. And central committee refers to what that person does in their role as governing body of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. But it's the same person, the same thing. Next, please. Executive committee. Executive committee exists only in the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party to vote on endorsements. Now, that's a very important role But the central committee actually governs the party bylaws and could actually change the role of the executive committee, which is kind of something we would like to see happen. It's a subgroup of the central committee in this sense. After every election, and again, the next election is next year in 2020, all of the elected central committee members in a community or a ward, each Cleveland suburb has, their own central committee members. Each Cleveland ward, which is about the size of, an average suburb, has their own. Some of the really small communities are combined into one entity. But anyways, the central committee members get together and they do two things. They elect a city leader and they elect executive committee members from that community. And the number of executive committee members is basically determined by population. Like, as you might guess, larger suburbs like Lakewood, Euclid, Westlake will have more central committee members than smaller suburbs in Cleveland wards. And they will also actually have more central committee members because they will have more precincts within their community. But the central committee members elect executive committee members. Now, if the central committee members do not elect the number of executive committee members for that community, then the rest of the executive committee members are appointed. The central committee members also elect a city leader for their community. It's the executive committee members then that vote on all endorsements. Now, the endorsements they vote on are only the endorsements, that their community is in a district of. So the only time all of the countywide executive committee would vote would be on judicial endorsements. And actually, the only other thing would be county executive endorsement. But, for example, when they vote on an endorsement for the Cleveland mayor's election, it will only be the Cleveland executive committee members that vote on that endorsement. Now, one of the things in the county bylaws right now, and again, I want to reiterate that central committee members can change the county bylaws. If the executive committee votes on an endorsed candidate, then all Democrats must support that endorsed candidate. And if you don't, you won't be eligible for an endorsement in the future. This has created great bitterness within the party because a lot of time there's multiple Democrats running in a primary. And if the party endorses one person, supporters of the candidate who don't get endorsed get very bitter and angry because if they're an elected official, they can't voice their support for a candidate. One of the things that we feel very strongly about is if the party did not endorse in primaries, two things would happen. One, there would be no bitterness that these endorsements sometimes cause. And two, energy can be focused on the general election against the Republicans. But for right now, these endorsements done by the executive committee members, and this becomes where the power structure of the party, makes their imprint. See, and if you follow with what I told you before about how none of the votes are secret votes, if the party insiders, the party bosses, want somebody to get an endorsement, it's very easy to promise and to intimidate folks into supporting that endorsement. Next slide. Okay, precinct leaders. I think we've gone over this before. People that represent their constituents. Every 4 years, the vote is always in the primary election in a midterm year. I think we also mentioned that precinct leaders vote for the city leaders, and they campaign in their precincts prior to their elections. Quick note on the endorsements. before an actual endorsement vote is made by the executive committee, city leaders get together. Now, this is kind of non-binding, but in the power structure, it actually can become binding. The city leaders get together and they vote on a recommended endorsement. And it's usually a week, before the actual executive committee votes on the endorsement. Now, some city leaders within the power structure try to convince their executive committee members that they have to all vote the same way. And some communities have had city or ward leaders that have intimidated their executive committee members to do just that. And some unscrupulous city leaders and ward leaders will actually go so far to say, well, we've got to go what the city leaders recommended. Okay. I'm actually a city leader myself. And I've sat in on a few of these meetings over the next few years. That is major power politics at its best, in what they try to convince the city leaders to do. Now, again, we can change that if we get a majority of central committees of people elected who can elect the majority of city leaders. Next slide. Okay, precinct leaders are elected by the voters in their precinct. That's in the primary, the Democratic Party primary, in the midterms. Now, on the ballot, it says central committee member, okay? And if you are a voter, in the midterms, you will have a vote for state representative. You might have a vote for you'll have a vote for state representative. You'll have a vote for your congressperson. You might have a vote for Senate. You might have some issues. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of your ballot, you'll see vote for Democratic Party Central Committee member. I would say 90% of voters, when they scroll down and they see vote for your Democratic Party Central Committee member, have no idea what it is, may think it even sounds communist because it's Central Committee, and they won't vote. A lot of these Central Committee elections come out to 8-0. One candidate is running unopposed. And the reason they come out 8-0 is because only that candidate's friends need to vote for him or her. Okay. How do you get someone to know what Central Committee is and who their precinct committee leader is? You have to knock on doors and campaign. If you knock on the door and you introduce yourself, I'm running for precinct committee leader. First thing the person will say, well, what's that? Then you explain it to them. But then they will remember that you knocked on their door. It's in very, very rare occasions where you get a contested precinct committee leader election where both candidates campaign. Now, most of the traditional structure of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party was, okay, that's my precinct. I'm on the ballot. Okay, I'm going to get it. Last time what happened is a number of them were stunned to find out that there was somebody else on the ballot. And they were even more stunned to find out that that person was campaigning against them. See, so you may have a contested election, but we'll walk you through this. It's not that hard if you're willing to knock on doors and campaign. Now, after the Central Committee members are elected, and I think we mentioned at the outset that there's still about 200 vacancies. Executive committee people can appoint Central Committee members to a vacant precinct. And how that works is Well, there's hundreds of precinct committee people. Sometimes people move. Well, you can't be the precinct committee leader in the community if you're not living there anymore. So then there becomes an opening and an appointment is made. Sometimes, people aren't elected to a precinct, but then a year later, somebody says, hey, I would like to do that precinct committee in that precinct. And so then there's an appointment made. The executive committee actually approves these precinct committee leader appointments. And they almost always do that because it's better to have somebody in the precinct position than to not. But anybody who's appointed or anybody who is elected must run for re-election in the next 4-year cycle, which again is going to be in 2022. Next slide. We mentioned that already, about 200 vacancies in Cuyahoga County. And I think we're getting close to the end. The city or ward leader. Again, I think we already mentioned this. They're elected by the precinct, the precinct leaders in their community. They are automatically an executive committee member. And they're generally supposed to oversee their own central committee members or precinct committee members' efforts during an election cycle. Next slide. Okay, again, I think we've covered this. You need 5 signatures to get on the ballot. And it's like, any other petition where you're running for an elected office, which precinct committee is an elected office. Now, these 5 signatures have to be Democrats. It's not that hard because the likelihood is 5 Democrats that live in your precinct. And what we did last time, and I'm reasonably certain we'll do the same thing again, is we will have the petition forms available for you to print out so that you don't have to go down to the County Board of Elections and get one yourself. We also actually last time turned in a number of people's petitions, but again, we'll help you in all of this process. The primary election in the midterms is in May. Petitions are always due 90 days before an election, so that will be sometime in February of next year. Next slide. Okay, this is about the Ohio Democratic Party. One of the things that's happened is their budget has been drastically cut because their fundraising is real low. And I think that's it. Thank you very much, Deb, for flipping the slides. And do we have questions in the chat or live? I'm trying to look at the chat. It's my experience that precinct leaders are very territorial. I've heard some bad stories. Well, there are bad stories, but there are good stories as well. And I'm looking around here at some very good precinct committee leaders. If by territorial you mean they're knocking on your door at election time urging you to vote, that's it. That's a good thing, right? But if by territorial you mean that, wait a minute, this is my precinct, how dare you run against me? Well, you're supposed to run for re-election every 4 years. You're allowed to run if you get 5 signatures and get on the ballot. See, but the territorial in a negative way means that that person is angry because they want to retain what they feel is a power position to vote on the endorsements. Unaffiliated can also sign the petition. I forgot to mention that.
Steve, you have a question from Alan. He has his hand up.
Okay, I was reading the chat ones first, and let me just see. Okay, Alan, go ahead.
More a comment, just since we're talking about this those of us who are currently on the central executive committee member committees, it's always a good idea to double check the county party's list because they are horribly disorganized. And I'm now noticing that despite being a central and executive committee member, after this most recent vacancy filling, I'm currently not listed on either, despite paying my dues and having been appointed to my current precinct when I moved within the ward. So just another thing to be on the lookout for as committee members from the powers that be.
Alan, I'm saying this sarcastically, that your switch in precinct only occurred a few months ago. They usually only update that every 2 or 3 years.
No, they've updated it to show who filled my vacancy, but they didn't update it to show my new precinct. So I'm just not on the list at all anymore.
Well, no, I was being sarcastic with
Oh,
that, that, you know, that's how they are.
Actually, the executive committee list that's online right now is not the executive committee list. They've just put a duplicate link to the central committee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just for those of us who are committee members or are considering becoming committee members, you have to watch the county party leadership because they won't always pay attention and keep things organized.
Can I say one thing to that, Steve?
Sure.
To Alan, to let you know, the last election when we did the 2018, it was over a year later that I was still calling the Board of Elections and the Democratic Party to get an updated list done. And both of them were blaming the other person, of course. But it took like a year and a half before they had finally got the 2018 on, it was like the end of 2019 before they finally had our information up. So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Steve Khalil has his hand
Khalil,
up.
I see your hand there.
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay? All
Yep.
right. I just to piggyback on that a little bit, I noticed on the county party website a little while ago that there were 2 different lists depending on which link you clicked. One of them I noticed was updated with some people that we added and the other one wasn't. Now, it's been a little while since I looked at it, but that might be one of the issues is that there are 2 lists and they are not, synchronized. So depending on where you click on the website, you might get a different list. So be careful of that.
Yeah, and the website also has the elected executive committee members and the appointed executive committee members on separate lists. So yeah, if you're looking for executive committee members, you got to make sure you have both lists, before you get to all of them. It's messy, and if you picture, we're trying to recruit candidates for 900 different precincts across the county, it's going to be messy.
And Steve, Dennis said he had his hand up.
Hi. Yeah, hi. Is there, as far as I saw the bylaws, there isn't no conflict of interest bylaw sections, are there? Or do you think that's needed? Are there times when you think party officers are actually engaged in a conflict of interest? They do business with the city, or, there's some circular relationships there that should be addressed?
I do not think there is anything in the bylaws, but one of the things that we want to do, and we're targeting the July meeting to do this, is to talk through suggestions, that we would like to see that it changes in the bylaws.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a lot of people who just take something because it just gives them extra social contact with people they could get contracts from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And too, like you see, Chantel Brown is now running, for U.S. Congress. Kevin Kelly is running for mayor of Cleveland. if you are a career politician, being a chair or a vice chair of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party gets your name out there even more. Right?
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, to quickly wrap this up, our next step, we want to have a meeting in July. We don't have the date set yet, where we talk through possible structural changes that we would like to make in Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. Myself and other activist leaders, we're trying to get in touch with as many other activist groups as possible, because this is a huge project trying to find 900 different candidates to 900 different precincts. But we need people who are interested in doing work in their own community. Like, it's the easiest place to recruit precinct committee members is where you live. Okay, people who are interested in politics, where they live, et cetera, et cetera. If you are interested in doing this within your community, let me know and we'll have a one-on-one conversation. And the easiest way to do this will be simply to answer the email that we send you tomorrow that's going to have all of the links.
Steve, you have one more question,
Oh,
Celeste.
Celeste, I'm sorry.
Hi, thanks. I'm so sorry. I was multitasking and feeding my kids dinner. Did you say the Ohio Democratic Party had their fundraising, had their funds reduced?
Well, I mean, they exist on contributions. Their contributions are way down, so they've had to cut staff.
Can,
That's all right. Okay. Okay.
could I address that real quick, Steve, since I was at the last meeting?
Yeah, Joe is actually the chair of the Ohio Democratic Party Disability Caucus, so he sits in on a lot of meetings.
So yes, money is down, and the issue that they have is with their office space. They are planning on doing something which I totally disagreed with and told Liz that I thought was ridiculous, is that they're looking of getting rid of office space altogether for the state party, which I just personally think that should not be done. But they had a goal of like 2.3 million for each quarter, and they want to raise it up a little, but they got the bank to go in on a new deal on the mortgage for the office space that they got now that they're trying to get rid of. But they are running on a slim team right now. Prime example is that myself and the Asian and Pacific Islander caucus became official caucuses the end of last summer. They still haven't got to the point of adding us to their page of the caucuses. But come this summer, there is supposed to be election, and then I get to be on the state executive committee because being a chair of one of the caucuses. But yeah, right now they are really behind things, and as I've told all my caucus members, that we just need to go out on our own and move ahead and not count on them to do anything. We just have to do it ourselves.
All right. Thank you. I was wondering if I should donate to, because there's so many places to donate that it's really hard to know where is best to allocate your funds.
Right. There's thousands.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah, for people who are willing to donate, there's never a shortage of business.
Yeah, it's really, really, it's very hard to know the right place.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Anything else?
No.
Yes, Steve, I'm going to say it if you won't. Celeste, donate to CCPC.
Oh yeah, I think that I will. Yeah. And I like the Ohio ranked voting also. That's important.
Somebody wrote in the chat, should the CCBP have a written list of responsibilities? They do, except nobody really follows it.
They don't even promote it.
Right.
You know,
No, they would just prefer that everything remain quiet and that the precinct, the central committee, the executive committee members just show up and vote for who they're told to vote for in the endorsements. That's how they would prefer to run it. You know, one of the things too, I just to mention in conclusion, Chantel Brown's is the current party chair. If she wins that congressional election, I cannot see her staying as party chair. You know, she's going to be in Washington, right? So the likely scenario is that there'll be an interim election for a new party chair until next year. In that scenario, if Nina Turner wins that special election, and all of the prognosticators agree it's between Chantel and me, right? It's not likely to be somebody else. But if Nina Turner wins, the power structure in this county changes dramatically. And Nina has indicated that she wants to be involved with the project that we're working on here. Obviously not until after the special election, and that assumes that she wins. But it's going to be a major, kind of either way, it's going to be a change in party politics. Well, thank you all for coming. I think we're right at the hour and a half mark. It's always hard on Zoom to sit for an hour and a half, but you guys have been great. And, the governor has lifted all restrictions. So I'm thinking maybe it's not that far off where we can be meeting again live. So again, thanks.
Thank you, Steve.